All right, so we're going to go ahead and start off in this case, guys, with the introduction of completing the square. The process of completing the square basically is rewriting an equation that is in standard form. We're going to be rewriting that in vertex form. We have already seen in this case how to rewrite standard form equations in factored form. So the other form in this case would be vertex, and the way to do it would be by completing the square. So our goal in this case is to rewrite the expression in this case as a perfect square trinomial. We are focused on having a constant or looking for a constant, and our key point or our key number is going to be the x coefficient. So let's go ahead and take a look at this here. So our goal is to rewrite the equation as a perfect square trinomial. Now, the reason behind this is that whenever we're completing the square, since we are rewriting this as a vertex form, there is going to be a binomial that's going to be squared. In this case, it's going to follow more or less this format where if we were to be completing the diamond method on the specific expression or equation, we would be able to express the perfect square trinomial as a squared binomial. So let's go ahead and take a look at example number 1. And in example number 1, it says use completing the square to find the value of c. Now, in order for us to actually solve for c here, we do have to use a specific formula in this case. We are working with an x squared minus a 44x plus a c. Now, how we're going to go ahead and be identifying c is that c in this case is going to be equal to b. The value of b, we're going to go ahead and divide that by 2 and then square it. This here is going to be representing our c value, our constant. That's going to be representing the constant. And in this case, most of the times, or actually all the time, that c value is going to be perfect square. So our b value in this case, b, is a negative 44. So notice in this case that is a negative 44. So we're going to go ahead and rewrite this. We're going to go ahead and rewrite this. Or actually not rewrite it, but we're going to go ahead and use it to solve for c here. So c in this case is going to become a negative 44 divided by a 2 and then squared. So if we simplify this, a negative 44 over 2 is actually a negative 22. And we're going to go ahead and square that. So I'm going to go ahead and take out my calculator here. And in this case, I am going to be putting parentheses because we do have a negative number. So let's go ahead and square that. And that's going to be 484. So c in this case is 484. 484. So if I want to go ahead and rewrite this, I'll go ahead and actually rewrite it on the bottom. I have an x squared minus a 44x plus 484. 484. All right. So in this case, guys, all we were doing in this case is we were solving for c, which in this case we did. So the constant we found was 484 on this one. Now, let's say I want to go ahead and express this as a squared binomial. Once again, I want to go ahead and express this as a squared binomial. Now, because we have our highest exponent to being a 2 and we do have a constant, we're most likely able to do the diamond method. So if I do the diamond method on this one here, I have a times c, which is 484. Because it's 1 in this case, leading coefficient is 1. And we have a negative 44 on the bottom. All right. Now, if we think about this in this case, we're actually looking for two numbers that are going to multiply to the top and at the same time add to the bottom. In this case, I know both of those numbers are going to be negatives. And in this case, that's actually going to be negative 22 and negative 22. If we do negative 22 squared or negative 22 times the negative 22, we are going to be getting that 484. And if we do negative 22 plus a negative 22, we get that negative 44. So in this case, because our leading coefficient is a 1, we could actually rewrite this expression here, this binomials. We're going to go ahead and rewrite them as x minus 22 times x minus 22. Or we could actually express it as x minus 22 squared. So the ultimate goal in this case is to rewrite it in this form. But for today's lesson, guys, we are focused on just identifying C. But I am going to be showing this work, this part here, just so you know that that's what we're going to be leading up to in further lessons. So that is example number 1. All right. Let's go ahead and take a look now at example number 2. Example number 2, in this case, we're using completing the square to find the value of C. So once again, in this case, we're solving, or we're looking for a C value. We're looking for C here. So then if we're going to go ahead and do that, if we're going to go ahead and do C, I have C equals, once again, a B over 2, all of it squared. Our B value in this case, once again, is X coefficient. B values are X coefficient here. So then that's going to be coming a negative 12 over 2, all of it squared. Negative 12 over 2 is negative 6. And negative 6 squared is a positive 36. So in this case, our trinomial, or a perfect square trinomial, should be x squared minus a 12x plus 36. Plus 36. All right. And I'm not going to just stop here because I want to go ahead and express this as a squared binomial. Now, if it's a squared binomial, it's because the factors that you find as we're doing the diamond method are going to be the same exact number, which means that we're actually looking at a perfect square. This here is a perfect square. So if we do that, I have A times C on top, B on the bottom. That's 36, and that's a negative 12. So two numbers that multiply to the top and add to the bottom would be negative 6 and negative 6. And because our leading coefficient is a 1, we could actually stop factoring and just rewrite this as x minus a 6 times x minus a 6. Or we could express it as x minus a 6 squared. All right, x minus a 6 squared. All right, and we'll go ahead and go more in depth as to how we do this, or when we could actually stop doing the whole factoring method. But in this case, our answer here, guys, our answer was 36. We're just doing those extra steps. All right. So let's go ahead and take a look at this next one. And this next one is actually a practice problem for you guys. This is a practice problem. And in this case, we have an x squared plus a 5x plus c. So our goal in this case is to solve for c. And once again, our formula here is b over 2, all of it squared. So go ahead and identify what b equals and go ahead and substitute it into our equation here. All right, and that is the problem that you do.